just like to say welcome, hello, and I'm Bex from Social Media Executive, and I'm here today with very special guest, Kimba Cooper Martin, who is from Kimba Digital and is going to be telling us in a second about gamification on social media, which I am really interested about. So if you're watching this live, please do give us a thumbs up and introduce yourselves in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please do give us a like and make sure you're following our channels. For every Monday, we have a live stream to give you lots of tips and advice on social media. So with no further ado, please can I welcome Kimba. Go on, tell us a bit about what you do, Kimba.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And hi to everyone who's watching. Okay, should we probably start with what on earth is gamification? Because I know that some people don't know what it is. And what I tend to find is I explain what it is. And then people go, oh, yeah, I do know what that is. And they come up with loads of their own examples because it is everywhere. It's all over the place. So you've probably played a game at some point in your life. Games have been around since the start of time, from hopscotch to tiddlywinks, from Fortnite to chess, mobile games, board games, all these things. And built into those games are things that make you want to continue to play, even when it's boring, even when you're frustrated, because you want to beat your opponent or you want to get to that next level. And so what I do is I take those tools and elements that are built into games and put them into non-game settings. So I might help my clients to gamify their courses, their launches, their memberships, or in this case, their social media. So it's about more than just turning everything into a big game, which is what a lot of people think gamification is. It's more about taking learnings from things like psychology and management and learning and development and all sorts of other things to help motivate yourself or others to achieve more. So it's, despite the name gamification, it's kind of more psychological than anything else. So yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, you've probably seen it everywhere, whether you realize it or not.
So it's not really like putting a bit of hopscotch into your social media or tiddlywinks. It's a little bit more strategic than that, is it?
Yeah, of course. And you can use games in your social media. Of course you can. And you can add in things like bingo and stuff like that. But realistically, gamification is about figuring out the kinds of people who are in your kind of audience and making the content or the course or the membership or the social media or whatever it is fit those personality types so that they will be motivated to achieve what they want to get out of whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, it's I think it's a bit of a hard one for people to get their head around at first, but once they get into that, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, this is so exciting.
Yeah. So I suppose the main thing is it's about, because obviously with social media these days, you can't get anywhere with social media unless you have good engagement.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that is the essence really of gamification on social media, to sort of drive that engagement.
Yeah, definitely. So it's really, really good for increasing engagement. In fact, there's a stat, and I can't remember where it comes from, but it's 81% of marketers said that interactive content is more engaging and more effective than static content, which is the case. So if you can create content that is interactive, that is going to make people engage more, then that engagement will lead to more reach, which will lead to more people following you, which could lead to a bigger audience and then sales. So that's the whole point of it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the theme that we're covering actually this month in the Social Flock, is engagement and how to increase engagement, because I think this is one of the areas that a lot of businesses struggle with, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's also one of those things where you're like, oh, I know I need to post every day and I know I need to put this content out there, but I don't feel like anyone's interacting and I don't feel like anyone's really watching me, and it just feels like a massive waste of time. Whereas if you can put some gamification into your social media, into your marketing anywhere, you're going to start to see a little bit of increase in engagement, and that's going to make it start to feel a bit less arduous because you actually start to see some results. You actually start to see some engagement.
So give us an example then, because I know you sort of have lots of resources to help businesses with this as well. Give us an example of maybe one sort of idea of gamification that you've implemented with your client or something.
Okay, so let's have a thing. I'm trying to think of like social media one specifically. So let's do one that's kind of a bigger marketing campaign that includes social media as well. So when we were changing to become a gamification consultancy, we wanted people to be intrigued as to what we were going to be doing next. And so we didn't reveal it. What we did instead is we kind of did a bit of a treasure hunt, whereby we would talk on our social media around what we were going to be doing without actually talking about what we were going to be doing. And we would tell them that if they wanted to know more and get some clues, they had to sign up to our email. And so they would sign up to our email, and then they would get clues, and they could, if they wanted to, guess as to what we were doing. And not many people guessed correct, but a couple of people did. And we were able to then use those people who'd guessed correctly what we were going to be doing next, to survey them and ask them questions, because they had a bit more information than other people. So it was a combination of using the social media to get people onto our email list, by kind of teasing people and doing that kind of, it's not a treasure hunt, is it? What, like, I don't know how you would describe that. Like getting people to guess clues to figure something out.
It is. It's like it's a bit like a treasure hunt, really. It's like it just reminds me of like an escape room, you know, but the other way around. You've got to get into the escape room to find out what's in there. Yeah.
But it was so effective. I had people who hadn't spoken to me for years messaging me and going, Kimba, I need to know what your new thing is. Like the clue, this is driving me mad. I need to know what this new thing is. And I'm like, well, you have to sign up for the emails like everyone else, and you'll have to get the clues just like everyone else. So it worked really, really well to build up a lot of interest, a lot of intrigue in what our new thing was going to be. And obviously we had to gamify this big reveal of our new thing. So it kind of made sense to do it in that way. But it doesn't have to be a big campaign like that. Like some great examples. One that I talk about quite a bit is one that M&M's did in 2013. So the chocolate brand. Okay. And they were releasing their new pretzel flavored M&M. And they did a kind of Where's Wally I Spy style graphic. So they had like a Facebook post image, and it had hundreds of little M&Ms next to each other in lines, and hidden amongst them was a little pretzel M&M.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was very simple. It's like Where's Wally? Okay, so you're just trying to find a pretzel M&M, but it worked so well. Like it was crazy. So I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's something like it had 25,000 likes, 6,000 comments and 10,000 shares, or maybe those last two were the other way around. But it was really, really effective. And let's be honest about this. That was not an expensive campaign. That would have taken them the time it costs to make that graphic and talk about it a bit on social media to get people to actually go to it. It's, you know, you could recreate that in Canva. It's not a difficult campaign to do, but it was super, super effective. And lots of people learned about their new pretzel flavored M&M through that campaign.
And sometimes it is just having that simple idea, that simple graphic. I know, you know, I can spend ages creating a post thinking, oh, this is going to do phenomenally well. And actually, you know, it really doesn't do very well. I shared one the other day, and it was just a funny meme, actually. It was just a shared one saying, 20 odd years ago, we named our kids after, you know, high quality brands like Mercedes and, you know, things Chanel or whatever. These days, new kids, when they're born, I think they're going to be called gas and electric, because they're so so high in value. And that got loads of engagement because people sort of found it funny, didn't they? Yeah, and I suppose that's
it's really relatable, isn't it? It's really on topic at the moment. So yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So your gamification ones then are really, it's just about having a bit of fun with your audience. And obviously your background, you used to be, you know, a massive Instagram trainer and consultant, didn't you? That's your background. So you know exactly how these social media platforms work. And it's just really nice to see how your business has transitioned into, actually, this is one thing that can really, really make a difference on people's social media.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
So you've got some tips, haven't you, Kimba? You've got some tips that we were going to share with us.
Yeah, so I think the first one I've just kind of talked about a little bit, which is start simple. So lots of people think that gamification has to be like a massive 3D graphic video game or like interactive world, but it can be as simple as using polls more frequently in your Instagram stories or doing a quiz with your audience. It doesn't need to be a massive campaign to get a bit more engagement if that's what your objective is. So, you know, polls are built into almost every social media platform now. They're so prevalent in our society that everyone, you know, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter, they're, you know, even WhatsApp's got inbuilt polls now. So you can use really tiny things to gamify your engagement and increase results for you and your audience. So yeah, I think that's probably the one that people are most surprised by, is that you can do it really simply and for free.
Yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? It's about simplifying it and, and keeping it simple. I mean, LinkedIn polls last year just went a bit mental. You just saw LinkedIn polls everywhere because the algorithms were just sharing them everywhere. But, you can create, even if you don't want to use the polls feature, you could still write a post sort of, constructed like a poll, couldn't you?
Oh, easily. And ask them to say, I don't know, put A, B, or C in the comments, depending on which thing you choose. You could do it manually on platforms that don't have polls built in, or if they're not working for some reason. I don't know. Platforms, sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to do a poll today, and you go in, you're like, the poll button's disappeared, and I don't know why. Like maybe they're updating it, or maybe there's a glitch. So you can do these things manually. Yeah, don't overthink it.
It's funny because when I was working at Nomad Games, so prior to me launching Social Media Executive quite a few years ago now, I did a very, very simple one, and I just asked. Obviously, we were a games company, so we made games, but our social media was really quite bland, at the time when I first joined the company. But then I started implementing fun little things. So I had a huge community that loved board games because we made digital board games. They loved board games. So I did a simple one, and it just went, right, okay, if anyone wants free access to all our games, we're giving away one key. It was a Steam key, give free access, and it was worth about 140 quid this. And all I did was put, I just want to see your tallest board game tower. The tallest board game tower wins. And it's brilliant. I couldn't believe it. I had so many entries. One was higher than a house. It was just unbelievable. They'd spent all weekend doing it with his son, and they were doing it with the kids. And then in the end, we had so many nominations and so many people who'd entered that in the end, I just couldn't decide because we couldn't physically go to America to measure them. So we actually put it to the audience to decide, and we said, right, who do you want to win, A or B?
Oh, I love that. And there's so many elements to that are really, really useful kind of tips for people as well. So the fact that you made it quite easy for people to take part, all they had to do really is put board games on top of each other. It's not a difficult thing, and take a photo. It's a bit of fun. Most people have board games in their house. Most people have way too many board games in their house. So yeah, that whole making it as simple as possible for people to take part. But then afterwards, I love that you did this because, so your thinking behind it was, we've had too many entrants, I can't possibly decide. But realistically, what you've done there, asking the audience to vote, is getting them to engage even more. So you've gamified it even further just to solve a problem, which is what I would always say. Use gamification to solve problems if you can, rather than using it just to add fun for the sake of fun.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really good tip, isn't it? It's about, what is your long-term business strategy? How is this going to help? It's like people doing, we were talking about polls early, and it's not just about, polls, do you like, green tea, herbal tea, or proper Yorkshire tea? Which is your favourite? That's actually not going to help your business, is it? It's about keeping it key to your business objectives and helping it to achieve what outcomes you want in your business.
So that's actually one of the tips I was going to share. So we might as well delve into it. This is thinking about your objective. So why are you wanting to do this gamification? Lots of people will come to me and they'll say, Kimba, I need you, I want you to make my course more fun. I want you to make my social media more fun. I want you to make my membership more fun. And I'll be like, that's fun's great. It's a nice to have, but as you say, it's not a business objective. What is the point of your gamified campaign? What is the point of your gamified social media post? Are you using it to, like you say, get engagement? Are you using it to get traffic to your website? Are you using it to get more signups to your newsletter? Are you using it to try and increase your followers? What is the reason you're doing this? Because once you know that, then it'll make it much easier for you to figure out what kind of gamification you should be using, rather than just saying, I just want to make my social media more fun, which is nice, but it's not going to make you any money at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's interesting actually, because I suppose some people watching might go, well, actually, for our sector, what would we do? Because it might be, I don't know, if they're in the finance sector or services sector, it can be quite difficult. But have you got any sort of tips? Doesn't matter what sector you're in, any sort of tips to help them achieve that?
So, okay. this is something I hear all the time, actually, is I'm not a fun person, or my industry's boring, so this won't work for me. Well, gamification is all about motivating people to do things, and generally it works best if you're trying to motivate people to do things that they don't enjoy anyway, or that they find boring. So industries where you're in a kind of boring industry like finance or IT or accounting or those kinds of things, they're going to work better in those industries because your competitors won't be doing them, because they'll be thinking the same as you, that we're too boring to use this X, Y, and Z. But it's also gonna work because of what I just said, the fact that it's better to gamify boring things. Now, let's give you an example of a very boring company gamifying you every day. You probably haven't even noticed. So LinkedIn is possibly the most boring social media platform in the planet, and they use progress bars to help you to complete your profile. So they'll say you are 95% of the way to a complete profile. If you do this one action, you will get to 100%. Progress bars are really boring. They are a game tool, and LinkedIn is using them to gamify you to complete your profile every single day. So I think it's a mindset shift to think, actually, it's not about me. It's about my audience and gamifying them to do X, Y, and Z. So things that you might think, oh, I'm not sure about. Competitions. So, you just said yourself running a competition when you were working in a games company, that would work just as well in any other company. You just have to think about what your audience would want to win and what you want to achieve out of running that competition, and then do that. But and this is one of the other tips I was going to say, so I might as well pop it in here, is prepare your audience. Okay, so what a lot of people do, they'll say, I'm going to run this big competition. Let's say it's a like and share competition or something very straightforward to that. And they do one post on social and that's it. And then they say the competition didn't work. Now, your audience is probably not used to engaging with you in this way. They're probably not used to, reacting to a gamified poll or responding to a competition. So you need to spend some time talking about it first. You need to spend a lot of time talking about the fact that you're running this competition and promoting it everywhere, on your emails, on all your other social media platforms, doing lives about it. Because otherwise you might put this one gamified post out there that's like, I'm running a competition, and it'll fall flat, and you'll think that the gamification didn't work. Whereas actually the problem is basic marketing. Like, you've not marketed the fact that you're doing this gamification. So it's just like anything else, really. You need to market it way more than you think you need to. You need to explain to your audience, like they are really stupid, how to take part in this competition. Because again, even when you explain things to the full, some people still won't read it properly. Some people still won't understand. Some people might not have seen a competition like that before. Yeah. They need to get used to it. And again, if you then start running those competitions regularly, your audience will get trained into how to react and how to engage with this kind of thing. So it will become more successful over time. So I think it's very easy to go, oh, I put one of those this or that stories out there where you ask somebody to choose, your favorite pair of shoes. Do you like this color or this color, whatever? And nobody really responded. Well, did you ask them? Did you prep them for it? Did you tell them you were going to be doing this and that this weekend? Did you give them examples of how it might work? Did you make it as, for want of a better phrase, idiot proof as possible, to make it possible for them to do that thing? I think it's very easy to try a gamified thing and then go, oh, the gamification didn't work, whereas actually you just needed to work a bit harder to make it work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think sometimes you put posts out there, don't you? You go, oh, what do you think to this, X, Y, Z? How would you respond? And sometimes you don't get that much, attention. But I think sometimes the simplest ones are the best, aren't they? Mm-hmm. As well. But you're absolutely right about building up that momentum beforehand, because people forget, don't they? They might put a post out and it might say, oh, you've had 147 views on this post, but all that means is it's gone in the newsfeed and someone could have scrolled past. Doesn't necessarily mean they've actually read and absorbed what you say. So you're absolutely right. You need to say it in so many different ways, on so many different platforms, to get people to realize it. And it's interesting, when I launched the Social Flop, this is Barbara here. Barbara. She was actually named by my community. And that was a game. And actually, I hadn't thought of it as gamification. Actually, I just thought of it as a bit of fun. But now I'm sort of realizing that actually that was gamification, because I just went out and went, right, this is the new logo for the social flock. It's going to be launching next month. But our sheep, she needs a name. What would you call her? And we had so many silly sheep names that people come up with, so inventive. I'm honestly, people were so creative, and it was brilliant. The only issue is I hadn't quite thought it through, because I'd actually launched it on all these different platforms. So I had people mention it on Instagram, LinkedIn, personal, LinkedIn business, Facebook, Twitter. And I was like, okay, so I had all these platforms to collate. But again, with that, I then had to shortlist it in the end, and it went out for a vote in our group. So the social flock members actually decided. But of course, that was a perfect example of gamification, I suppose.
It is, and bringing that back again to simplifying as much as possible. So maybe you could have said, vote by putting your answer onto this page on my website, just a one single thing form, so that it went in, so you wouldn't have to collate it everywhere. But then you always have to ask yourself, is that going to be a barrier by making people do an extra click to go to a website? Is that going to stop them from, coming up with a name? So you always have to weigh up, is it better for me to have less work to do, or for them to have less work to do? And most of the time it's better for them to have less work to do, so they actually contribute, so you actually get that engagement. But yeah, that's a great example. And I love the fact that you let your community make the final decision, because it's their logo at the end of the day. Barbara, it's all for them. Like I really like that.
Yeah. She's great. She goes with me networking all the time now, because it's a great conversation starter. Why have you brought a cuddly sheep networking?
Oh, I love that. That's really good. That's really, really cool. Oh my gosh.
So have you got any more tips before we finish then, Kimba?
Yeah, so I think the next one is a bit of a caveat, but I think I've kind of alluded to it a little bit as well, but it's don't expect a 100% success rate. Now, I know this sounds obvious, but everybody's different, okay? Everybody finds different things fun. So something you might find fun, I might hate, and vice versa. Yeah. And the same with all the people watching in the audience. And that also goes back to the kind of, I'm not in a fun industry kind of situation, or I'm not a fun person. There will be other people who find the same things as you fun. But equally, if you put out a poll, some people might hate polls. And so it's not your fault. It's nothing that you've done wrong. You know, that you're just not going to hit the mark with that person. Some people like a leaderboard in competitions. Some people hate competition, full stop. Some people like chocolate. Some people hate chocolate. If you put a game out there, and even if it's 100% reflective of your dream customer and relates back to your business and ticks all the boxes in terms of things that you know that you should be doing, there will still be people out there who just don't have time to respond, or who won't respond because they don't like to respond to those kinds of things, or who don't resonate. Even if they are your dream customer, they just don't resonate with that post. They say variety is the spice of life and all that. So even I will put stuff out there and I'll be like, just like you said, Bex, like, this one is going to hit the mark. I've done all my research. I've ticked all the gamification boxes. This one's going to hit the mark. And we did one launch, and it just happened to be at the same time as the Queen passed away. And you never know what else other things are going to happen in the world that are going to affect the success of what you're doing. Yeah. So I just think, don't expect a 100% success rate. Don't beat yourself up if it doesn't work straight away. Tweak it. Try it again at another time of day. Try it again on a different platform. Maybe think about, and this is another tip which I wasn't going to add in, but I'll add it anyway. But think about, why should they care? Why should they interact? If you're scrolling and somebody says, share this post, why should you? Like, you're busy, you've got stuff on. So really think, if it didn't work, maybe you didn't give them enough of a reason to engage, enough of a reason to care. So yeah. I'm going to stop, because I am definitely rambling on this one. I get all excited about it.
It's really brilliant, because actually you've just made it something so simple. Because I know when I was invited to join the live stream, I was like, gamification, I don't know enough about this. And I was like, this is going to be, really interesting, but quite intricate. But actually you've managed to really simplify it. And actually it's not that difficult, is it? And you don't have to have a massive prize at the end. And I always remember a Twitter competition, because this was going about 10 years ago now. Someone did a little competition on Twitter to win the Mars bar that was on his desk. and it absolutely went viral. I can't remember what the question was now, but it was just like, oh my goodness, it just went. So you don't even need, like you say, people will enter just because they want to, not necessarily because there's a big prize.
Yeah, some of the competitions that we've run, people don't even know what the prizes are beforehand. They get, it's a mystery. They have no idea, and they'll still get involved. And the prizes, people think, oh, I must have prizes of a 3-day spa retreat or a Chanel handbag or a flight to wherever. But one of our most enjoyed prizes that we ever gave was an elf and safety badge at Christmas time.
Really?
So like, it doesn't have to be big, massive investment in terms of prize giving for it to be successful.
So just keep it simple. Now, you do have some templates as well, don't you, that you can share with businesses as well. If they don't know where to start, I'll go, oh, I don't, how can you help them with your templates?
Yeah, so I think if you're like, oh, I want to try some of this gamification stuff on my social media, but I don't know where to start, we put together 2 template packs. They're Canva template packs. So one of them is for normal feed posts, so they'll work on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and the other one is for stories, so anywhere you do your stories. And they are kind of divided into categories. So I can't remember, there's 30 in each pack, and they're either 5 categories and 6 in each category or the other way around. So for example, if you wanted to do a bingo post, there's like 5 different ready-made templates ready to go, so all you have to do is insert your own stuff. There's a video which explains how it works, and there's notes on each one. So if you're like, I don't know how this would work for my industry, I try and give examples of how you could change it for if you're B2B or B2C. So yeah, and they're really, really cheap. It's 35 quid for 60 templates, which is less than 60p a template. So yeah,
that's great value, isn't it? And just a great starting point, because also not only that, it will then give you more ideas for stuff that you might be able to adapt for your own business as well, won't it? Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Kimba. It's been really, really interesting. If you are watching this, please do give us a thumbs up, and give us some ideas of what games might have inspired you to do on your social media. Pop them in the comments. We'd love to know more about what ideas this has sparked for your gamification on your social media. And if you're watching this live, again, do say hello, give us a thumbs up. But if you're watching this on catch up, if you've got any questions or just want to share some of your ideas, again, we will be looking at the comments afterwards as well. So please do let us know what you think about gamification. So thank you so much, Kimba, and we will see you all. I will see you next week, and make sure you do take advantage of Kimba's offers as well for her gamification cards, and follow her on social media as well.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Kimba, and thanks everyone for watching. Thanks. See you later.
Everyone.
Bye.